Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Beer 30 Happy Hour with the Washington Beer Blog. Thanks for joining us. I hope you got a beer ready because we're going to be drinking some beer here. Got some guests with me. Got the folks from Big Time Brewery and also Chris Chappell from Washington Wild. So cheers, everybody. Let's have a sip.
Cheers. Cheers, guys.
So the reason we're here today is because Big Time Brewery brewed a beer recently to benefit Washington Wild as part of their Brewster Alliance program. And I'm going to start out here by introducing everybody. Chris Chappell is the program director for the Brewshed program at Washington Wild. And then Rick and Roy are the brothers of renown at Big Time Brewery, owner, head brewer, all that stuff. So we got all the important people here to talk about this beer and to talk about what's up with this whole thing. But I want to start out by first of all, cheers again. Cheers.
Cheers.
I want to ask Chris if he would just tell us a little bit about Washington Wild and what's up with Washington Wild and how do you end up in a place where you've got something called the Brewshed Alliance?
Yeah, well, I feel very lucky that we have something called the Brewshed Alliance because it makes my job a lot more fun. So Washington Wild, like it says at the bottom, is a conservation nonprofit that focuses on advocacy and protecting wildlands and waters in the state of Washington. We're over 40 years old now, which is pretty awesome. And so we really focus on, coalition building, bringing a lot of different voices to the table around different conservation issues here in Washington. We do a number of activities trying to, attack and defend wildlands and waterways. So kind of on the attack, we try to find new ways or new areas to protect through federal designations of wilderness areas and like wild and scenic rivers. And then we'll defend public lands from, threats. The cool thing is that we have this Brewshed Alliance, which is a group of over 60, craft brewers, hop growers, maltsters, pubs, tasting rooms, et cetera, that really rally behind our conservation work and the idea that, in order for us to have good beer, we need clean drinking water. So I think the reason why, like here in Washington, we have some of the best beer in the world, frankly, is because we've got, such clean water and then the availability of awesome local ingredients, hops and grain that depend on clean water sources. The Brewshed Alliance is pretty cool. We, our Brewshed members do a lot of great things for us, like, doing collaboration beers like this. Normal times we do some fun tasting room events, tap takeovers, etc. And then they also, sign on to our advocacy letters that we do. So we'll do letters around different conservation issues and, breweries and, different Brewshed Alliance partners will sign on to them, lending their voice to this important issue, whether it's like supporting something good that's happening in the conservation world or maybe opposing something bad, like mining in the headwaters of a very important river to the state of Washington.
So what are a couple of the things that Washington Wild has done in recent memory that people should know about?
Yeah,
like the Alpine Wilderness expansion. Wasn't that the most recent one?
Yeah, I think that was a couple years ago. The one that we're currently working on, or we're part of like the coalition working on it, is the Wild Olympics campaign to protect more or to get more of the Olympic Peninsula designated as wilderness area and get some more rivers designated as wild and scenic, which is really some of the strongest protections that those areas can get.
I think people should know that Washington Wild is with the Brewshed Alliance is definitely focused on watersheds and protecting our water sources upstream. But in itself, Washington Wild is part of a bigger picture to help preserve and protect Washington remaining wild lands, which is really admirable. So cheers to that, guys. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers to that.
To Washington Wild.
Thanks.
So exactly, you guys, how many brewery partners did you say? Brewery and pub partners and stuff do you have?
We're
40 or something?
over
How
60
many?
now, I think. Yeah, we just added a couple more lately. Holy Mountain, Standard, and Fair Isle were joined on pretty recently, which we're excited to always expand and find new partners and new voices for the alliance.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy sell to convince breweries that we need to ensure that they have good, clean water to work with. There's a lot of breweries in other parts of the world that envy places like Seattle because of the amount and the quality of the water that we have. I mean, the kind of like Roy, the kind of work that you have to do with the water is more just for the sake of enhancing it and changing the flavor of the water than it is like making it actually brewable.
Usable.
No, exactly. Yeah, we got it easy over here.
Yeah, I feel bad for some breweries in like Arizona and Texas, and you're like, you have to do what for water chemistry?
Parts of California.
Jeez, like that's brutal.
Yeah, it's the idea that a brewery would have to use a reverse osmosis machine in Washington is just like that's comical. I mean, it's not comical for anybody, but there are people who use them. But anyway, getting beyond the water, let's talk about the beer, which is what comes from the water, the important stuff that comes from the water. So, how did you guys decide to brew this beer? How did this relationship between, I know this relationship between Big Time and Washington Wild, Brewster Alliance, is not exactly new, but to brew this beer, and the beer that we're drinking is the Upstream IPA. Cheers.
Cheers.
The Upstream IPA, which is benefiting Washington Wild and the Brewster Alliance. So how did that come to be, and exactly what is happening with this beer when I drink it?
Well, one day Chris was drinking in the front right of the bar, and Roy was in the brewery brewing with a white T-shirt on, and I ran back there and started spraying him down with a hose, and I was like, Chris is there with Washington Wild. Roy's back here going, Roy's gone wild. Let's make a Big Time Washington Wild beer. And
None of that is true. None of that's true.
I'm kidding.
Really, Ben
With a
Ben
good
at
old-fashioned
Watershed.
wet T-shirt contest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're good friends with Ben. Who owns the Watershed, and he's on the board.
Ben and Kelsey are the best. Watershed Pub Kitchen.
And we've been in.
I'm sure they're watching us right now. So hey.
Guys. And so we'd been in communication for about a year about trying to do a beer with this for them. And I'm good buddies with Skagit Valley Malting. I like to use their malt. Use local. Less transportation, better for the environment. Also, just interesting flavors that you get from our local community. And so he told me about the salmon safe Fraser pale malt that they had coming up. And so then I talked to Ben, and I was like, hey, I really want to try to brew a beer for the Brewster Alliance with this, because it just kind of goes hand in hand. And the Fraser Valley, starts the watershed up in Canada and comes down to Skagit Valley, which where they're located. And so that's kind of like how we got the whole conversation going. And then we all kind of met up at the watershed, talked about what kind of beer we wanted to do, and it came from there.
That's great. So back to the nuts and bolts of this thing.
Yes.
When I buy a 6-pack of beer, how much of the money I spend on a 6-pack of beer is going to Washington Wild?
This beautiful can right here has a
we got the
listed
cans.
So
Don't you worry.
perfectly.
I'm going to show off your cans.
40%, baby. It's going to Washington Wild of all sales.
40%.
Yeah.
That's
very generous.
And is there any place we can get it other than stopping by the Big Time, or should we all just head to the Big Time and buy a pizza and a couple 6-packs to go?
You should always go to Big Time, but you can also get it at Bottle Works, A1 Hop Shop up 104th.
Last Drop Bottle Shop.
Last Drop.
Full Throttle Bottles. And
Watershed
Pub and Kitchen.
And then
it's on draft at Hopvine and Fiddler's Inn starting tomorrow too.
Yes.
So because we wanted to get it out there, so we're like, Full Throttle's down south, A1 Hop Shop's up north. And then if you live in Edmonds, we also have it at Bridget's Bottle Shop, which is an amazing bottle shop out there. And so we just kind of wanted to touch base
Bridget's, yes, Bridget's.
and make it easy for people to, be able to access it if they can't make it into the U District.
Well, and we kind of designed this beer to, kind of be sold to restaurants, and we could drink it, at either outside or inside a minimum capacity. And then we got shut down again because of COVID. And so then we had to really try to get it in cans and get it out as fast as possible. So it was kind of a hurdle that we had to go through.
So speaking of the cans, I want to show our audience what the cans look like, because they are very, very beautiful.
Bam.
Yeah, they're pretty, aren't they? I mean,
So
they're when I first looked at them, I wasn't exactly sure what I was looking at, but I recognized that it was pretty, so I looked at it deeper and I realized what I was looking at, and now it's even prettier because I love salmon. So, who did the artwork for you?
One of my good friends, Neha, she has her art on Instagram. It's at Neha, so NEHAHAA.art. She graduated from UW, master's in their art school. She's very talented, amazing local artist. She likes climbing. She's just an awesome human being. And I approached her for, kind of like an idea and concept of it. And she kind of started jotting down some ideas, and we're just like, wow, this is awesome. This is beautiful. And at first I was afraid the salmon was a little bit too scary. And, then she made it look a little bit nicer. And I was like, beautiful. This is beautiful. This is awesome. This kind of epitomizes everything that we're trying to fight for. You got some greenery in the back. We got the beautiful river it's in. Got an awesome salmon, that's got some pink showing on it, spawning. And, just kind of epitomizes, what we're kind of about here.
Yeah, so thank you to her. She's great.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's a pretty can, and I think we would call that salmon. We wouldn't call it scary. We'd call it a hook nose. And and that's maybe the most beautiful salmon in the world, because it's about to give us more salmon. That's the way I've always looked at it. People, that's a scary, ugly looking salmon. It's like, no, that's a beautiful, beautiful salmon. Because that salmon is hopefully going to make hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands more salmon. So that's the good thing. Can is not scary. So
he's dramatic.
No, it was when it was still in like concept phase.
Yeah,
part of my
where it was polished.
So it's cool that you have a local artist that put in some hours and some effort into that. I wish you should have shared that information with me, because I would be sharing that information with our audience right now. Kim's sharing it. My wife, Kim, is monitoring the Facebook stream and the comments and stuff. So she's going to share it as a comment on the Facebook stream.
Perfect.
So what else do we need to know about the beer in terms of, you mentioned Skagit Valley Malting, which are great people, and
so big thank you to them.
And they make fantastic product. So tell us more about the ingredients that went into the beer.
Yeah, so it was their Fraser Pale, which is the organic salmon safe, and their light Munich. So really, it was just a 2 malt beer, and so we were really just trying to go for a nice orange color, kind of a in between of a Northwest/West Coast. And then YCH, they gave us all the great hops, which is very awesome and nice of them. So thank you, YCH. They gave us Chinook and Citra, and we had a little Amarillo on hand, so we put some Amarillo in there as well for the dry hop. So it's majority Chinook, about half of that Citra, and then just a touch of Amarillo. So we're going for a little spicy, citrusy, floral kind of character.
Yeah, no, YCH is a Yakima Chief. Just in case some people don't know that.
Yakima Chief Hop Union. We love them too. Yakima Chief. That's where all the good hops, not all the good hops come from, but Yakima is where all the good hops come from. But Yakima Chief Hop Union is one of the suppliers over there, for the people who don't know. But so what I get off of it, now if we just don't want to talk about the flavors, I get the aroma, I get more floral than I taste.
Yes, I totally agree.
I get a lot of flowery aroma, but then I get more kind of I don't want to say citrusy, but more of a kind of pure Northwest hop flavor.
Yeah, kind of,
and a little, and then just a little bit of bitterness at the end, which I like.
Like when Cascade kind of just smells like on point,
Yeah,
and kind of tastes on point. I get a lot of that where it's kind of citrusy, but a little bit more of like a peel aspect rather than like the pulp aspect. And it comes off a little bit dank and a little bit bitter, and just that floral aroma to start it off, and then it's got like a really nice malt body to it that's not over the top, where it kind of satiates it, gets it all throughout the back of your teeth and in the back of your throat, and then it just finishes real nice and clean and bitter.
Yeah, the bitterness on the finish is awesome. It's like you get done drinking it, it goes down, and then the bitterness happens, and then it lingers a little bit, and then it goes. It's actually the bitterness on the finish is really, really outstanding. And yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with that the malt.
Yeah.
It's got more. So many of the IPAs that we drink these days they're so hoppy. And don't get me wrong, I love hops, but they're so hoppy that they're designed to showcase the hops, and the malt just kind of gets lost in the wash. Which some people would say that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But I like a beer that's a little bit more balanced. This beer is, by today's standards, 6-7 years ago, we would have said this is the most ridiculously overhopped, out of balance beer in the world. By today's standards, this is a really well balanced IPA. So cheers.
I know,
Roy.
right? Thank you.
Good job, Roy.
Cheers.
Good job, Skagit Valley. Good job, YCH.
Right? No, really. And it was just cool to get together on the brew day, even though it was COVID. We all kind of kept our distance, and but we still had some great communication and got to know each other. It was a lot of fun. And Skagit Valley showed up, and Eric. I don't know if you guys know Eric Buis, but he's quite the stand-up guy. And so it's been a really fun project.
Yeah, and it's great to know that they're involved with Washington Wild. They've been involved with charity things that I've done last year. We brewed our Beer Church IPA, which is a big charity fundraiser beer, and Skagit Valley was all over it like a big dog, and we really, really appreciated their involvement. So next up,
somebody said, what about the IBU?
Oh, somebody wants to know what the IBUs are.
55. 55
Perfect.
Straight up, like actually 55.
Real 55.
People like to skew whatever you want them to be.
But people get all bent out of shape about, like I've seen people wearing T-shirts that say, life starts at 75 IBUs, and it's like, you're that, to me, I don't claim to be an expert. When I see somebody wearing a shirt like that, it's like I look at them and I think you're a total amateur.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's got different flavor, but we didn't want to overpower it.
The hoppiest beer you ever had the beer that you thought was the hoppiest beer you ever had in your life was probably only 45 IBU.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah, nowadays it's probably 35 IBUs.
Well, and the human palate generally, only exceptional type A palates can taste anything over about 70 IBUs. So
yeah, no, exactly.
Anyway, so I was going to say the next thing we should talk about here is maybe start moving into the conversation about what you guys are doing at the Big Time right now.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're in like survival mode. Like, okay, what can we do every day to drum up sales? And that's the way that COVID is right now. That's reality for a lot of small businesses, and you see every other day another iconic small business is closing down, right? And it just breaks your heart over and over and over again. And that's kind of one of the for me, one of the more depressing things about COVID is how many of these great small businesses that I used to love going to and kind of took for advantage, that I could just go to them whenever I wanted, have closed down, and it's heartbreaking. But here at Big Time, we just do whatever it takes to get through the day and survive. And I'm blessed by having My brother here is my head brewer. I couldn't ask for a better work life, scenario. And also my significant other, Rosa, she is always helping us out and working and, does a lot of the technical stuff for us, updates our ordering app. And it's kind of crazy how COVID definitely did motivate a lot of small businesses to go more web-based and more digital and more online.
Yeah.
And that's one thing where you kind of like know how to do that or you don't. And we were blessed to have Rosa because she knows how to do that like the back of her hand. And then we have these two amazing brothers, the Sudar brothers, Joe and Sam, and they help us out with some technical stuff from time to time too. So cheers to the Sudar brothers. And really, it just kind of it takes a village, and everybody that just kind of comes in and supports us and helps us get through, each day, or if there's this problem or that problem. We have friends that help us with electrical work, with construction. I mean, there's so many that I couldn't even name them all have stepped up and been there for us. I have a buddy, Sean, that's helping us with electrical work right now. Another buddy, Sean Lucas, he helped us build a booth out in the front. And I've got the Bauer brothers, I've got Chris Moore. I mean, it's endless the amount of people that it actually takes to have a small business survive these days. And it's really due to our friends and our big time family that is keeping us going. So I'd like to raise a toast and cheers to all the people that are part of the big time family. Cheers.
Well, and we're doing growlers to go, cans to go. We do 16-ounce cans. Practically everything, and so we're just doing the best we can to move product.
Yeah, we sold out of our bottles of Old Woolly, and then I convinced Roy to fill 40 more, and now we're down to I think 14 left of those. So we've got 14 bottles left of Old Woolly. So everything else is available in 16-ounce cans.
I don't know if you've ever hand bottled 600 bottles, but it takes a little while.
I go down and check on him every hour just to make sure he's okay. But another thing in the beer industry too is the people that bring professional edge and amazing write-ups and help bring the awareness of what's happening, and that's people like you, Kendall. So I'd like to raise a glass and cheers to you, man, for everything that you do for craft beer in Washington State. Thank you so much.
Cheers to that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, but I don't do anything except talk about the beer that you guys brew. So, I mean, my business, if you want to call it is a business, but my business has. When I started this 12 years ago, I had no idea that I would still be doing it 12 years later. I had no idea that I was ever going to make a dime on it. But then all of a sudden, all these breweries started opening all over the place. And when I started this beer blog, there were about 100 or less breweries in Washington. Now there's over 400. So we've just kind of grown along with you guys. So, but I appreciate the kind words. And yeah, it does. It takes a village, and it's really important that I think a lot of people out there, joking about the idea of dry January is about to happen. Sorry, folks, you don't get a dry January this year. There are small businesses out there that need your support, and it takes a village. And if all you do, I write about beer and I publish stuff about beer, and there's other people that do everything else involved with beer that for a living and whatever else. But if all you do about beer is drink beer, then that's what you have to do. You have to support your local brewery by drinking beer. COVID's rough. Things could be worse. There could not be beer. So imagine a world without all these beautiful breweries like the Big Time, and then COVID would be really, really rough. So, I want to give a shout out to you guys at the Big Time. Because I go, you guys taking over Big Time is so perfect. Rick, I've never told you this, but it almost brings tears to my eyes when you were going through the process of taking over the Big Time, because I've always said the thing that I love. I'm much older than I look. I know I only look 30, but I'm much older than I look. So I've been going to the Big Time since the Big Time opened, and it's always it's had this thing where it's comfortable and it's familiar, but there's a constant stream of, I think I wrote about it one time and I called it like a constant matriculation of new faculty, new grad students, the constant matriculation that you enjoy there. There's a combination of the people who are neighborhood people who've been there forever, and this constant stream of newness that comes through the Big Time that makes it feel younger than I am. You know, and I love that. And when you guys took it over, it was just like, that's just perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And you know, it's like that. What was it, the Matthew McConaughey line from Dazed and Confused? You might know which one I'm talking about. The one where he says, "That's the thing I love about high school girls. I get older and they stay the same age." So the Big Time manages to stay young while I get old. So I appreciate that, and it is cool that you guys were the first brew pub in the city since Prohibition when the Big Time opened. Looks like you guys are froze up, Rick and Roy. So anyway, we got a question from somebody.
Any answers from Dow or his people?
Rick, can you hear me? Uh-oh, they dropped off. They'll pop back on. So apparently Rick was on KUOW today, and Rick, in addition to being a brewery and pub owner, is an activist for the community and is involved. He's probably not giving himself enough credit, but he's been really, really instrumental in working with the other small businesses in the University District and advocating for them. And apparently he asked Dow Constantine and some other people some questions today. Okay, so Chris, what else are you guys working on right now? Now let's get back into Brewshed for a second. What else you guys got in the pipe work right now?
Yeah,
I'm sure it's been weird for you guys during COVID too, because you're used to doing events.
Yeah, it's been a little strange. I started this position about a month before the quarantine hit, so it's been good and bad to kind of like transition. Hey, you're back. And they're frozen again.
Yeah, sorry. No, we're okay. We're here.
Oh, there you go.
So anyway,
yeah,
Chris, what have you guys been working on?
events.
Even though you can't do the events that you normally do, what kind of stuff are you guys working on these days? Just more like what you're doing with Big Time?
Yeah, trying to engage our Brewshed partners, you know, since we're not able to do tasting events, you know, try to do some cool collaborations, you know, really, you know, focus on some relationship building. You know, I'm fairly new to Washington in general, and so it's been really great to like get to know, you know, awesome businesses like Big Time and, you know, work on collaboration beers. We've been doing some virtual events, and we've been trying to focus or showcase as many Brewshed partners on these virtual events as possible. Yeah, we got some kind of cool projects in the works for next year, and nothing's really ripened just yet to talk about, but you know, right now as an organization, we're trying to prevent mining in the headwaters of the Skagit River. So, you know, we've been doing a comment letter. We kind of reinvigorated this coalition of different groups on both sides of the border, since the headwaters are in BC, the Fraser Valley, where the malt from the beer, where some of the barley that was malted for this beer was grown. So trying to make sure that the headwaters of the Skagit's protected for, you know, wildlife and farmers and brewers and maltsters and, you know, just all of us as Washingtonians. So, you know, staying quite busy as an organization, even in pandemic times.
So in addition to buying the beer and drinking it and supporting any events that people see that pop up on their calendars and pop up on my blog about Washington Wild events, where can people go to learn more about Washington Wild and about the Brewshed Alliance?
Yeah, so we, you know, following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter is always great. Washington Wild or at @wa_wild. To keep up with what we're doing, we also share a lot of like news in the conservation world and kind of things that are going on in public lands. But also signing up for our email on our website, wawild.org, is really helpful. We do a number of like action alerts, ways for people to take, you know, send a letter to somebody around some kind of conservation issue, really easy ways for people to engage in, conservation activism at the grassroots level. So yeah.
And that's wildwa.org.
Wild.org.
Wild.
Wild, yeah.
Wild. Cool. Awesome. So Rick, getting back to you guys, Rick and Roy, our friend Ava had a question.
Heard Rick on KOW. Did they get any answers from Dow?
Rick, they heard you on KOW. Did you get any answers from Dow Constantine?
Oh, so I have a nonprofit, U District Small Business Association, where I advocate for the whims and woes of small businesses, especially minority and women-owned businesses at City Hall. And so any chance that I can to essentially publicly fight for them, I do that. So Dow Constantine and I have kind of been having a conversation about small businesses being able to safely reopen during the pandemic. And long story short, the CDC said 5 days ago that there's no reason why small businesses can't operate at a 20% capacity. And actually, they said that all businesses should be operating at a 20% capacity, and that would actually drive down numbers way more than just limiting, some restaurants and gyms and stuff. And so with that type of data coming out from the CDC, that says like, hey, like why can't, restaurants and, certain gyms and cafes and all these businesses that have been struggling for so long operate at a 20% capacity if they have airflow, if they have a decent air quality index, floor to height ceiling ratio. And so those are all the things that I brought up to them, just basically saying, hey, why don't we create metrics for the King County health officials to be able to go out and inspect, these businesses to be able to see if they can reopen safely or not. Like, let's try to get the ball rolling ahead of time. That way, when January 4th rolls around, like we already have it written up, and then you can apply to get inspected, and they'd be like, oh, yep, like this place has got good airflow. This place has got, awesome ventilation. They've got good PPE. Like, let's get this place open. Because otherwise, I'm afraid, that these small businesses are going to be closed down for a while. So that's kind of a conversation that we've had a couple times and will be ongoing to try to get the King County Health Board officials essentially writing that up and creating those metrics.
Did you get an answer?
He agrees with me, yeah, and he says that he advocates for it. But he's a politician, so it's usually kind of a roundabout answer, but he's on board and wants to keep talking about it more.
It'll be good to have guidelines.
Yeah. What else? That's I don't want to get too much into that. You said he's a politician. I don't want to get too much into the political side of it, but
good idea.
What else are you guys doing at Big Time right now to deal with the pandemic? Rick, you told me something about what you're doing out front.
Yeah,
what
so
you're hoping to do out front.
Yeah, our beautiful village of amazing customers and family and friends are going to help us build an outside streetery. And so if anybody from the city of Seattle is listening from the Development and Planning Department, just go ahead and check the box of okay for our permit and hit no fees. No fees for Big Time for their streetery. Because we don't have the money for the fees. And, because we want to build something that's safe. We're on an arterial street. And so we want to actually build out, a really concrete structure. Well, not concrete, but it's going to be made out of metal and wood. And so we want to build a 40-foot by 10-foot beer garden out front of our establishment. And we're looking to do that in January, just in case the city did charge us fees, because they're not cheap. So we're like, ooh, what if they charge us for the whole year, and even though we only used it for a week? So we're like, let's just start building in January, and then that way, if they do charge us, then we'll actually use it for the whole year. And so that way, there'll be some outside dining experience with that. But I mean, the cans are selling really well. This is the first of the kind of featured art by our artists. We're going to release a new can art every week for the next 5 weeks that we worked on. And we're trying to push the envelope with making what you touched on before, balanced, amazing beer. And so much of it has kind of like drifted kind of one way or the other, or this, kind of catchy, thing or that. But Roy does a great job brewing what I would consider like just real craft beer, where it focuses on the malt, it focuses on the hops, and where nothing overpowers and everything just complements each other. And that's what I love in craft beer is when you take a sip out of a beer and it's like, the carbonation, the bitterness, the hops, the malt, if there's a residual, sweetness or whatever, like how everything can kind of just come together and complement in your palate. It's just like, wow, that's what I'm looking for. That is just beautiful. And, there's different beer trends here or there, but when you make beer like that consistently, people will keep coming and drinking it. And that's what Roy's been doing. So cheers to Roy.
Yeah. Cheers to Roy. So, you're going to make this fortification sidewalk cafe out front so people don't get hit by a bus.
Yep, that's the goal.
People feel safe outside, and then when we get open inside, make people feel safe inside as well. Just try to do whatever it takes, make people happy, also while being safe for us and our employees and everything in between. There's so much to it.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. I mean, I know there's people on both sides of the issue. There's people on every side of the issue, but there's a lot of I think a lot of people who own pubs and restaurants and breweries need to understand that even if they were allowed to reopen, there's a certain number of people who aren't going to feel safe, and if you want to be successful in a reopening, you need to make sure that the people feel safe, whether they're protected from some guy bombing down this University Avenue on his rad power bike who crashes into a tent that's in front of the Big Time, or whether it's like worrying about contracting the COVID on by coming inside at your restaurant. This is once again it's this idea that it takes a village, that we're all in this together. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are talking about not just working towards reopening indoor seating, but reopening it in a responsible way that will not only be responsible, but also make people feel safe. So I appreciate that work that you're doing, Rick. That's cool.
Yeah. And not all businesses or the small businesses are the same, and big businesses as well. It's true. Not all places should be open, during a pandemic, and so that's why trying to create the metrics and the guidelines for small businesses to be able to see if they fit with the King County Health Board, would not only create safety with a consumer, but then also kind of lays out for that small business owner where they kind of hit the note and where they fall short on. And that way we can have safe inside dining going forward. And that's really what we're trying to create is, because that's we all want is, to feel like we're a part of the community that we all are a part of, which is the Seattle beer community. And, having the ability to just, even if it's 6 feet away or 8 feet away, be able to air cheers an old friend that you just bump into randomly at a pub or at a brewery. That's what makes Seattle so great is we're like a big city, but also a small city. So how I would classify Seattle is we're a big, small city, if that makes sense. We're not like a big city, like New York or LA or something. We're a small city. We're just a big, small city that's growing.
Yeah, and we miss a lot of each other. I miss people. I can't wait to see them.
I know we miss you, Seattle. We love you.
Yeah, we were at sitting outside at a brewery last weekend, and we could feel it. We were sitting at tables, obviously more than 6 feet apart from each other, and the people were 3 groups of people, 4 groups of people, or 5, and we were all yelling at each other across this courtyard. It was Volition Brewing in North Bend. Fabulous brewery, by the way. They make really good beer. But we were out in their courtyard, and it was like people were just like reaching out. It was creating a sense of community, even though we were having to kind of shout at each other across the way. It was a fantastic experience because it felt like it felt like we were sharing a table, even though we were at like 5 different tables, 5 different groups of us. It felt like we were sharing one big table because we were all just so dying to engage with each other, even though we didn't know each other. We were just so dying to engage each other. When we come back around, I believe things are going to be different. I think the idea of like, it used to be kind of like you were uncomfortable walking into a beer garden and saying, "Do you mind if we take these seats? Are you using all these seats?" All that crap, that's going right out the window. We're going, "Hey, how you doing? God, it's nice to meet you. Let me hug you." I honestly, I think that's one of the things that we're going to see in the future as we get to a point that this is all behind us. I hope. And I think that will help a lot of things in this world. But where else are we going in the world of beer, Rick?
There's definitely been a haze craze trend that's been happening for like the last 5-6 years.
What are you talking about?
No.
Yeah.
No. What?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely been a trend.
I got to wrestle them to drink them. I got to be like,
yeah. I'm not the biggest haze craze, fan. I'm more of a crispy boy, as people have been saying that are under the age of 25, apparently online. But there's a never-ending need for high-end barrel-aged beers, whether it's a bourbon barrel stout or whether it's a Brett sour. That is never going to go away, and that is something that I think that more small breweries are going to continue to kind of get into and dive into more and more, just because it's beautiful beer and it's something that everybody wants. It's something that everybody enjoys to drink, and it's really, really fun. Then I think that the fruit beer trend that's been happening is going to probably keep growing through 2021, and then I'm hoping it'll fizzle out. You see some beers that are look literally as thick as a milkshake.
Like, what do you mean, like fruit beers, like not just like what IPA with fruit in it? What do you mean?
Yeah, they're doing fruit IPAs. They're doing fruit lactose sours. They're doing, but you'll see it on like the different beer sites and whatnot, and reviews and Untapped. The photos, and it's getting to a point where it's like you take a sip and it's thicker than your breakfast smoothie that you make in the morning.
Right.
And you're like, okay.
I agree with you about all that kind of fringe stuff. I mean, there's a market for all of those things.
Yeah.
Certainly for barrel aged imperial stouts and imperial porters and bourbon barrels and stuff. There's a market for that. And it's probably going to grow a little bit, but I think where there's really room for craft beer to grow is I guess the only people watching this right now are craft beer geeks, so I can use this term, like kind of mainstream newbies. There's a lot of people out there that need to get turned on to craft beer, and they're going to be easier to turn on with really well-crafted pilsners and really well-crafted pale ales and IPAs. And if we can get 10 people to switch over to craft beer because of an IPA or a pale ale, maybe we'll get one of those 10 to get into sours and into milkshake IPAs and whatever else. But that's all perfect, because the more people who are drinking craft beer, the better it is for all of us.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
And that is our cup of tea, and that's what I hope continues to grow in craft beer, right? I think that there's also going to be a trend towards the session IPAs again, the pale ales again, because years ago, there was like that trend of double imperial IPA, and it was like super strong and bitter, and then there was the triple IPA, and then there was the so we kind of like kept going like up and up and up, And now I think that the trend is going to be for refinement, and the trend is going to be for polished and as well as sessionable. That way you can have 2 or 3 and still be okay, not be, too buzzed.
I think the key is you just don't put session on it. You just call it an IPA and it's
Yeah.
4.5%, and then people buy it.
Yeah, it's funny because you call it a session IPA and it's like, ooh, that doesn't move that well. You just call it an IPA, like, oh, flies off the shelf.
Yeah, there was one brewery. There was one brewery here in town that I'm not going to mention that got their distributor convinced them they had I think they were calling it a session IPA at the time. It was a 5%. It was a session IPA.
Yeah.
This was probably about 6-7 years ago, at least. And it was a session IPA, and their distributor, as they were getting ready to can it, the distributor said, "Nope, call it an IPA." They're like, "No, because it's a session IPA." And they're like, "Nope, call it an IPA." And they changed the name to an IPA. And then all of us who knew that the beer was only 5% were like going, "What the hell?" It's like, you could make a porter and just put IPA on the label and you'll sell more of it.
Exactly.
Nowadays, it's like, call it a hazy IPA, or what was it that somebody said here? Her name was Krishna. Yeah. Acai smoothie hazy lager will be Rick's dream come true.
No way. Yeah, I'm a clear beer type of guy. That's like my nightmare.
Oh, and somebody else also chimed in and said, rest in peace, the College Inn Pub.
Oh yeah,
your old neighbor.
Yeah, well, they're going to be making a comeback under new ownership.
Was it maybe bought by a local legendary publican?
Yeah, so Seth Howard got involved with it, and he is a dear friend. He actually owns Last Drop Bottle Shop, which is one of the spots you can get this beautiful beer right now.
Just saw him today.
And so he is taking it over with a couple of partners, and they're going to be shooting for, my guess is a June opening. That way they can kind of work through all their kinks, and hopefully COVID will be starting to get in our rearview mirror. And then that way they'll be ready to go like full steam ahead in the fall when the students come back.
Well, yeah, and College and Pub.
That's really great news.
Yeah, and Seth is a great guy. He cares about craft beer. He cares about making good food. Collins Pub is a beautiful spot downtown. It's not open right now, and it hasn't been since the pandemic. But I'm hoping that those doors can get reopened because that spot is awesome.
Legendary. It's up there with the Big Time, man. Absolute Seattle legendary craft beer place. And Seth, cheers to you, buddy. Yeah. He's been Collins. Seth has been advocating for craft beer and supporting craft beer in this town longer than a lot of the people who are drinking craft beer in this town have been alive, man. He ranks up there with me and Bob Brennan.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But cheers to Bob Brennan, by the way.
Yeah.
Freaking
cheers to
Bob father.
Washington WOW is actually formed in the College Inn. That's kind of a part of our origin story. Yeah, is that the group of environmentalists got together and formed Washington Wild over some beers back in, was it 77 or 79 or whatever?
That's awesome. They were probably really sober.
Yeah, they were probably really sober because they probably, as college students, they probably couldn't afford to drink enough Rainier beer and Olympia beer.
That's probably true.
Which is all they had to drink. I don't know if the College Inn Pub was a Rainier bar or an Olympia bar, but I promise you they were one of the two.
Yeah.
So Rick, Rick and Roy, do you guys have any other beer things planned for us in the future coming out? I mean, how was the barley wine release this year?
Oh, it was awesome.
It was great. We sold more bottles than ever.
We sold.
Thank you everybody for the support.
Yeah, the beer community really came together and just kept buying bottles and more bottles. And so we sold out, and then we filled more, and then we sold out. And then just yesterday, I convinced Roy to fill 40 more bottles. I think we have 14 left of that. And this year's Old Woolly was one of my favorite. It's too bad it didn't come out 2 years ago, though, because there was this ongoing thing where every year I would drink one more Old Woolly than the year before on Old Woolly Day. And so 2 years ago, I was at 15 Old Woolies that I was supposed to drink, and I didn't make it.
Pretty sure, Rick. Pretty sure I was there 2 years ago, but I don't think I stuck around long enough to see you get beyond about 9.
Yeah. Well, you were a lucky one. You were a lucky one. There's like 4 days a year where I kind of like let myself let loose. My birthday, Old Woolly Day, and Big Time Anniversary is another one.
And then Fridays.
No, not Fridays. But yeah, so we're gonna make Roy. The haze craze is still strong, so we're gonna make a beautiful.
Like
yeah, Roy loves hazies. A lot of people love hazies.
I like all beer, really.
There's if you're under the age of 25, probably you think that an IPA is a hazy IPA, but it's a style that sells well, showcases the hops beautifully, and so we've got that in the works next week. We also have a
Atlas Amber coming back.
Atlas Amber is going to be one of our staples. Will be coming back here real soon. Then we also have a barrel or two that we've been aging with some breaded sours in it, and we're going to blend that with some of our other sours, and we're going to be doing a little bottle release fruited sour. That's going to be exciting, and I can't wait for that one. That one's going to be like, oh my gosh! And we're just always trying to have fun. We're just trying to keep the Big Time legacy alive by staying more stoic and traditional, but at the same time pushing the envelope in ways that respects Big Time's heritage and culture.
So with the Atlas Amber, I just had a flashback. The Atlas Amber, the recipe, Roy, how close to the original recipe is it? Are you spot on with the original recipe?
I'll have to think about it for a second. Because, I got access to all the recipes for the last 32 years. So the people have changed them here and there. And so I would say it's spot on. Yes. It might be a little bit different from Maltster, like instead of, just Great Western, maybe it's somebody else. But yeah, it's about right there. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not going to take like the Atlas Amber and put some newfangled.
Why wouldn't you?
Hop in it.
Yeah. No. Exactly. Yeah. No. Keep it what it is.
No, it's just we just changed everything a little bit more local, over time, rather than getting, something from farther away. It's like, ooh, can we get that from Skagit Valley?
Or if there were, a little bit more prude back in the day with spending money on malt, Rick has allowed me to be able to spend a little more money on the ingredients to, support local and also make the beer taste a little bit better. Or in my opinion, just a little more unique.
Well, I guess my point kind of was that when they started brewing Atlas Amber all those years ago, they were, the world was limited in terms of supply. So you could not have brewed Atlas Amber with Amarillo hops. Amarillo hops didn't exist. Atlas Amber, the original one, probably was brewed with Cascade hops, I'm guessing, or Golding or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's got. I'd have to look at the recipe, but yeah, you sound about right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to change that.
No, you shouldn't. That's a fantastic beer, and it has been for a long, long time. Don't mess with it. Anyway, we should start wrapping this thing up. We've been on for longer than any of us expected, and probably longer than anybody expected us to be on.
Not anybody that knows me, though. Anybody that knows me, if there's a camera involved and a microphone, sign me up. We're just lucky. Somehow I haven't told like 10 jokes.
Yeah, we are lucky.
So we're going to be looking for the Rick McLaughlin ticket in 2032.
No, there's the whole mayoral candidate thing right now where I've had so many friends reach out to me and be like, you should run for mayor and put small businesses at the front of everything. And I'm like, well, small businesses don't have much money. I'd be running for mayor on like $50. And that doesn't go very far in running for office. So my heart is in small businesses and Big Time.
And we need them here.
It's we all have to focus on what we care about most right now with our time. And that's the same thing with our dollars. Every dollar you spend at a small business is $1 that you've shown that you care about that business. And it's really, the Rona has ruined a lot of things, but it's also helped us appreciate a lot of things in life. And the small businesses that, and the nonprofits like Washington Wild, that you care about. You have to try to make a charity beer. You have to try to go out and buy pizza from a spot or a beer from a spot. And it's really kind of brought back, the simple things in life, but also, that they're so beautiful, and that we really, really miss each other, and that we really, really miss this beer community that we're all a part of. And, we just kind of have to get through it until we can all be back. And then I'm going to make a Big Time shirt that says, I got my shot at my vaccine 2 weeks ago. Feel free to hug me and cry on my shoulder, or something, right? Like, let's all wear t-shirts like, hey, it's been a couple weeks since my vaccine. I'm good. Bring it in. I want a hug. Like we're all just dying for that. And it's close, right? We're getting there. So we just gotta wait until we're there.
Rick Roy 2024. Yeah, somebody commented that.
Yeah. I'm just glad that they convinced me not to name the beer Roy's Gone Wild. So that's a win.
Well, I just want to thank you, Kendall, for doing this. This is awesome. And Chris, thank you. And Skagit YCH. It's been a fun trip. Seriously, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a great beer.
This whole thing between all of the three entities that are represented on the screen right now. My job is to help you guys do the good work that you do. But you guys, Washington Wild, Big Time, you guys are doing good work, and I'm glad you're doing it together now. And let's all just move forward together. And big cheers to everybody.
Cheers.
Yeah. Thank you
Go
all
to the Big Time and get some of this beer, if for no other reason because the cans are beautiful, and for a better reason because the beer is freaking beautiful. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight, and have a good evening.
You too.
Cool.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you all.
Cheers to you.